was taken. Will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation.
Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Okay, this is the time that we open the meeting up for public communication. If you wish to speak on non-agenda items. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
We have 4 speakers on non-agenda. Our first speaker is Stephanie Irish.
Well, Mayor, I am here on behalf of my work. At the end of Parker Avenue, there's a recycling place. And they told my boss they do not have to provide a dumpster for garbage for their clients because the city hasn't come down there and told them to. We believe there's a city ordinance, but I tried to look up the ordinances and there's too many. But, so we're trying to get insight on that because they don't leave their garbage down there. Well, they do because you guys come and clean it up, like, once a month or whatever. But they also string it through all our yards, all the way down the whole Parker, down through Harms and everywhere. So if I could just get some guidance on where we go from here, what to do. He said he will not do anything until the city literally comes there and tells him he has to have one. So, thank you.
Our next speaker is the cameraman.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. I hope you all are enjoying the summer so far. I know we had a wonderful event a few weeks ago for 4th of July at our airport. Nice cars and planes that flew in. I don't know if you saw me there or not, but I was there. Great annual event. Hope it continues. With that being said, into some business here. On June 25th, bound approximately 5 p.m. at the intersection of Feather River Boulevard and Montgomery, a post was made on Facebook regarding an individual nearly T-boned an ambulance in the intersection. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, yes, I know vehicle near misses happen every day, but the reason why this was posted on Facebook and brought to the public's attention is because this incident was captured on video surveillance by one of the businesses. You see the ambulance making left to go onto Montgomery from Feather towards the highway, and this vehicle he had to slam on his brakes, nearly, T-boned the poor people in the ambulance. And then you see OPD coming from Feather River Boulevard and just turning onto Montgomery like nothing happened. And so some people are concerned that, our police department is not taking reckless driving seriously in this town. And I get some people's comments on there, well, hey, if they pulled him over, it could have turned into a high-speed chase. And I get no one wants a high-speed chase, but you don't know if they're going to run unless you even make an attempt to pull them over. So that's that. And then a few weeks after that, the public, here in Butte County, we received this year's grand jury report. And, it's 107 pages long, so, it's going to be here a while to talk about it. But basically, to summarize it all up, mainly talked about Oroville and some problems that we're having. Like I said, it's 107 pages, so I'm going to try and be brief. But the main thing that caught my eye in one of these, because a couple news agencies, reported on this, but the one thing that caught me is one of the things they referred to when listing all the problems that the grand jury found is at the very bottom it has the word bullying. And I'm like, bullying? Is that what we're calling alleged criminal activity and deprivations of rights? Bullying? I mean, we can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And as far as I say, grand jury, grand schmurry. Because, what good did it do? I mean, everybody's still here. It's nothing's changed from what I've seen, and from my understanding, they have the power to criminally indict people. So, thank you for your time, and have a good evening.
Our next speaker is Margie Hunt.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and the council, and everybody else here. My name is Margie Hunt. I have lived in Oroville for 50 years as of July 29th. We moved here, raised 5 children here, and we love Oroville. Our family love Oroville. Our children went through the school system here, and there's a couple of men in here that also grew up with my children that overwhelmed me because they're part of running my town, and I appreciate them tremendously. My main reason for being here is I just want to thank you. I have been coming to these meetings for a few months, and I'm overwhelmed with the responsibility that you all have. And I take it very seriously. Can't imagine the information that you all have to process and come to some kind of perhaps agreement on. And whether I agree with everything or not is immaterial. I just want you to know I thank you, and I pray for you every day by name. All of you by name and your families. I pray protection and blessing. I pray truth and right for Oroville. And again, all I want to say is thank you.
Last speaker on non-agenda items is Bill Spear.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, come to pray for you all this evening, but also I wanted to bring an item up. We had a catalytic converter stole off one of our vans in our parking lot. Last night I probably have it on camera, but another person at our church had it stole. They were at the movie theater and had a catalytic converter stole at the movie theater while they were in there watching the show. And I don't know if you guys can do anything, but it's kind of an epidemic. So pray for you guys. Lord, we thank you for our city council and their dedication, and Lord, as they take time away from their families and businesses, and I just pray that you would continue to bless them. In your word it says, the measure that we use will be measured unto us. As they pour out, Lord, I pray that you would pour into them. Bless them, bless their families, bless their businesses, all that they put their hand to do. Give them supernatural wisdom to do the job that you've called them to do. And as I see the big agenda for tonight, let them get through it quickly and diligently, and give them, again, the supernatural wisdom. We thank you for our police, and Lord, there's a lot of naysayers and people scrutinizing, but they risk their lives every day to protect, and I thank you for what they do, and for our firefighters that show up whenever the phone rings, and the ambulance drivers, and I pray for them. I pray protection for their physical bodies, their spirits, and their souls, for their families. Pray for all the organizations in Oroville that are serving Oroville, for the rescue mission, who are on the front lines serving the least of these. We say, go to the rescue mission, send them to the rescue mission. We pray for provision and strength and guidance for the rescue mission. For the Hope Center, we thank you for them, for their years of faithfulness and making a difference and giving hope. We pray for all of the service organizations of our wonderful city, that we would continue to bind together to show your light and your love, and to help people. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mr. Mayor, that is the last of the public speakers on non-agenda items.
With that, we We will close public communication, and I'm looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar.
Pull number 5, please. I'd like to pull number 9, too, for a second.
Anything else from anyone? Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar, pulling items number 5 and 9.
So moved.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Vice Mayor Thompson, you pulled item number 5 from the consent calendar. Do you wish to comment, sir?
Yeah, can I have the person who has it on here to give me some more explanation on this?
Yes, this staff report came from our Oroville Arts Commission, and so more specifically, Commissioner Tamori had requested that the City Council adopt this resolution in support of Butte County Office of Education's efforts to support the rights for all students to equity in the arts learning. And so it's a California initiative to basically what it says, rights to all students in the equity of arts learning. And so the Butte County Office of Education has already adopted this resolution. They've already enacted their program. This is just a declaration saying that the City of Oroville supports Butte County Office of Education's efforts in that.
Okay, I've been reading this over, and I think this is better just to stay with schools. This is something that's going across the state of California for schools. I personally have a problem with some of the language that's in it. There's a large move that's come in kind of pushing in our state that talks a lot about a right to equitable outcomes. And some of the language in here as well in regards to the historical aspect of basic racism. And I'm all for going after specific things of racism and inequities in our culture. But there's also just a lot, just if I can speak freely, there's just a lot of language in this day that's a lot of vilifying white male and victimizing people that are of economical or racial disparities that they kind of put that into. And I'm kind of just, I came from a very poor family. We lived in the projects. In fact, we lived with the family in the projects because we didn't have our own projects. And so, a lot of these rights that in here are right to equitable outcomes, traditional exclusions. I know that it's even been said from our Oroville schools that we have some of the most racist schools in the state, and just all that kind of language. I'm just kind of tired of it. I disagree with it. I don't think that Oroville schools are racist, and I think that as a whole in America that we do a lot. I'm not saying we can't do more, but to have just information in there and to have statements that basically say that this kind of things, it's just something that I think should just stay with the schools and something that right now I just don't support.
Council
That
members.
may sound politically horrible to say, but I have no political aspirations. That's
Council-
what I'm doing now.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Vice Mayor Thompson on this issue. I appreciate him pulling it. I think it deserves to be remain with the school board. There is in the resolution some problematic language that without clarification as to exactly what it means. I'm a little hesitant to say I agree fully with that without clarification or a demonstration that, in fact, that some of those things are ongoing or are a problem in our community. That being said, the bigger picture to what art provides for our children, I think it's a part of the educational system that has been poorly underfunded and relegated to the back burner, and it does provide I think good context and learning opportunities. And I think that some of the statistics bear out that young people that have an arts experience do well, not just in school, but overall. So there's a lot to be said to that. But again, everything is so hyper-politicized in our culture today that some of these programs become vehicles for ideology that we may not, as a community, fully embrace or support. And in fact, if you look kind of in the back end of this, which I did, it kind of caught my eye, and started digging around, trying to clarify what exactly this resolution means. And I was struggling to find that information in the amount of time that I had. But that a lot of this comes out of LA County. And so the question is the culture and the values of LA one that Oroville supports or embraces? And there's a little bit of a overlap here that I see. So at this point, I just could not, so without clarification, without having what all this means, I couldn't say I agree with everything in this resolution, because I don't on its face value.
Can I just read as well just some of the statements that are in here that I highlighted?
Vice Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, sir. The right to equitable access to pre-K, the right to equitable outcomes. These populations have been traditionally excluded. All students have the right to engage in arts that reflects and builds on their culture, language, and background. The right to learning programs in every school and district and community that is funded and supported with necessary resources. All students have the right to be supported by leaders in the community and school who understand the benefits of an education to prepare for college and career, and specifically geared towards a specific demographic. If all that said was one line here that says all students have the right to learn and practice the arts in a positive environment where everyone understands and acts on the knowledge that they have are engaging and valuable, important work, I would 100% say, absolutely. I support that statement. But there's just too much stuff in here that I think has undertones that I don't agree with.
Councilmember Smith.
And just to add to that, in reading this resolution, it's essentially asking us to buy into the fact, as this resolution would state, that we are a racist community. And you know, that certainly is a touch. It's a big issue, right? And it's very controversial and politically not even correct to bring it up or talk about it. But I just struggle with that, to say that, you know, right now that in our schools that there is this gross disparity in Oroville, and that we need to bring about these radical corrections, which it's implied in the resolution. And again, that's where I would need someone to help me understand what exactly does this mean. But just to read the whereas Oroville recognizes that particular groups of students experience significant barriers to access, participation, and success in art learning, and that these barriers are directly linked to historical, persistent, and pervasive inequities in our educational system that directly impacts their engagement as productive residents of our community. And that's the part I struggle with, is we're saying that significant barriers that are persistent and pervasive inequities in Oroville. And gosh, I struggle with that, because I don't necessarily see that. Maybe there is, and someone needs to help me see that and understand that. And I'm open-minded. But just to sign on and say, yep, that's us, sign me up.
Weren't you on the school board, Mr. Smith?
I was.
So you actually are somebody who can speak into these and see that you're probably a little more educated on some of this stuff than many of us. So I would say that even your access and availability to some of the information that's there in your comments would actually qualify you to see that maybe, you know, Oroville does a pretty good job of making sure that there's fair access for everybody.
And right now, actually, there is an issue that's going through our school district right now. I think that
Absolutely.
you're on
Yes, it
board
is.
with that. But I question some of the wherewithal of that. You know, and this again, we're getting distracted in other, you know, school board issues and all of that. But and I'm just going to restrain my comments on that. But anyway, I'm just, without further clarification for me, I just can't sign on to this, without having full understanding of exactly what all that language means, what the impact of that. I mean, this is just a resolution saying, yeah, we agree to it. I understand that. It's just, it doesn't go any further than that. But again, that's in part where we've gotten to as a society and a culture, because we just rubber stamp everything. Yep. You know, it's like we got to pass it before we know what's in it, thinking, if some of you might know what I'm referring to. Of course, someone took a lot of criticism for that, and that is what this is for me. I'm just going to pass it because it's a politically expedient and right thing to do, but it may not be the right thing for this city council person, or it may not be the right thing for Oroville. But without further understanding or implications of this, I just struggle with it. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Okay, Mr. Attorney, are we okay to pull this from the agenda and bring it back to a future agenda?
Certainly.
Yeah,
And
because I'd be interested in the language as well.
yeah, and if there's again, if there's strong interest in what the final language is, then I would suggest you work with staff as to crafting that final language so it's acceptable to you before it comes back.
Okay, thank you. Item number 5 is pulled from the agenda. Okay, moving on to item number 9. Mr. Pittman, you pulled that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I've read the staff report. The issue that I'd like to see, and just to hear that as we have volunteers that donate their time to serve on various commissions, and they run into this rule that appeared somehow or another, it would be nice that there's a courtesy notice given to that individual. I don't know if we did that, or if we do that, because there's all kinds of things that people volunteer their time for. And when you come up with the incompatible office doctrine, I mean, that's out there, and not everybody's well experienced with that particular topic. I just hope that we would contact the individual, whoever is concerned, and provide that information to them, so maybe they could make something. I don't know if that occurred in this case or not.
It did not, sir.
Okay.
And I will take full responsibility for not reaching out and contacting him. I was made aware of this issue, and I was asked to look into it, and if
Sure.
it's accurate, then prepare the staff report. I hate to put it in these words, it just didn't occur to me. And that's terrible to say, because it really should have occurred to me.
And
to
that's
call and
all,
let him
that's
know.
all I
And
was looking
and
for. We make a courtesy notice to any of our volunteers that are volunteering for COMARTs, the commissions and those places, so that they have an opportunity to respond.
Yeah,
That's all.
duly noted, and I will certainly, I've had a conversation with him yesterday with
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
O'Reilly.
All right.
I will actually call him and apologize to him for not giving him that courtesy notice.
Thank you, that's all I had.
Councilmember Riggs.
Thank you. I think that also a level of training might be valuable as somebody accepts positions on the commission, on various commissions or in volunteer roles about these kind of issues that arise. I know that when I signed on as a Parks Commissioner, it is a big commitment for an individual, and I think that the seriousness of that isn't always addressed on our side, and I believe that people are one of our most valuable assets, and I hate to see anybody who's dedicated their time to our community feel less than valued or appreciated. And then on this other side of that, I also believe that it's not necessarily appropriate to use the names of specific individuals on this issue. I think that that could have been crafted, or this could have been discussed in such a way that just talks about the policy, and like, this is the policy and this is XYZ, and if it needs to come to council, then it does, but if it doesn't, then that could be handled by the professional staff and not in a public forum. That's all, thank you.
Councilmember Goodson.
Yes, I wasn't surprised about the agenda item or the vacancy, because we are always looking for people to fill the vacancies. But as I scrolled down and I saw the name, that's what surprised me. And so my first thought, which I followed through on that thought, I contacted the person, and I know that they have a lot of passion about the city and the parks. And unfortunately, he was not aware that this was coming up, and it it blindsided him. So I had to apologize that he was to find out like that. And so perhaps that is the reason why the connection was made with you and the person involved. So I wanted to let you know that in the future, and I think I had reached out to you, diplomacy is key. That's what we're all about. And if we can't not extend a notification of courtesy, it just does not speak highly of us, and it is a reflection. So I think we all need to cross-check one another when we have sensitive issues like this come up.
Councilmember Goodson, I completely agree with you, and I will tell you candidly, that was a shortcoming on my part, and I own it. I will call him and apologize to him. I hold myself to a very high standard, and that did not meet my standard.
Yes.
So I am a the buck stops with me kind of person, and so I apologize to this council for that. I will call Mr. O'Reilly and chat with him and apologize to him as well.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Mr. Mayor, there are no public speakers on this item.
Looking for a motion to adopt item number 9 of the consent calendar.
So moved?
I'll second.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 abstentions.
Moving on to regular business, item number 12, bridge agreement with all associations / personnel for fiscal year 2022/2023.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. The item you have before you today for consideration is a bridge agreement with all of our associations to carry us through this next fiscal year that we're currently entering into. As you're all aware, currently the country is experiencing a 40-year high in inflation rates, and cost of fuel is at the highest it's been in, I believe, in the last 35 years, if not ever. Right now, we're experiencing a 9.1 inflation rate. Coupled with that cost of fuel, it's becoming more and more expensive for our employees to work at the city of Oroville. When we look at what we currently pay in wages to our employees, we are not competitive in the local market. I'm going to speak about law enforcement, but there's also many other jobs within the city and within our organization that are also not meeting what the market rate is for that particular profession or that particular job. It has been pointed out to me that regarding the median income in the area and things like that, I greatly respect that perspective and understand that. The issue that we're running into now is how do we recruit and retain employees? Right now, the city of Oroville currently pays $27 and I believe it's 80 cents per hour for an entry-level police officer. The cities of Paradise, Butte County, and other surrounding agencies start at $35 an hour. It makes it very difficult for us to recruit employees, but then also to keep them, because a 3-year employee at the city of Oroville is up to about $28, $80, $29 an hour, whereas an entry-level employee at the county is $35 an hour. This is not just strictly because of inflation or issues that face our city. It's because our surrounding area partners have negotiated very lucrative contracts for their employees. That has changed kind of our playing arena and our playing field that we are competing on for these same employees. We look at our strictly, for lack of a better term, labor employees. There are local employers that are paying $26 an hour to start. We pay our employees, our municipal law enforcement officers who come into the job, $17.70 an hour. That makes it very difficult to compete for those same employees. Now, the argument is often brought forward that, well, yes, but there are benefits that are included with that. We're working with a young workforce in our city that, quite honestly, when you talk to a younger person and you talk about retirement, that's not real to them. I mean, that's 30 years off, 40 years off. A young workforce is looking for cash in their hand, in their pockets. They're trying to acquire property. They're trying to pay their bills. They're not the least bit concerned about benefits. I know we consider that, and I don't know as though that is the way that the world should be looked at, and I would advise them to really consider those benefits. But you know, I've rode this rock a little longer than they have, so maybe I have a different perspective of the world. So, but that is one of the things that we have to deal with. So we're looking at that issue as well. Last week, what brought this to my attention was I had a younger officer come in and was talking to me, and wasn't by any stretch of the imagination threatening to leave or anything like that, but did question of me why it made sense for him to stay working for us when he's making $28 an hour, and there's entry-level employees a mile and a half up the road or 2 miles up the road that are making $35 an hour, when he could sell his time right up the street and make a $7 difference. The difference in that, when you have between what we pay entry-level and what the entry-level officer at another surrounding agency would pay, is about $16,800 per year. So what we're trying to do with this transitory agreement is to just keep ourselves competitive for this year, to at least slow down the exodus of employees. 1 week, I lost 3 employees because of wages. One took a job in a flooring store because he could not afford to support his family on what we were paying him. So I lost that potential police officer that we were grooming through the MLE program to become a police officer. That individual left to go work in retail because he couldn't support his family on what we were paying. I respect the decision. I'm not sure that I would have made the same decision, but this is the decision this young man had to make. So he did make that decision. So we're trying to do something to change that, to stop that or slow down that loss. Since 2021, the city of Oroville has since January of 2021, 47 employees have left the city of Oroville for various reasons. That has recently picked up. 29 of those have came from the police department. That has recently picked up. We are now losing them at about a rate of about 2 employees per month. Those information was provided to me from our HR department. To just provide you kind of a perspective of what we're doing here. So what we're suggesting with this transitory agreement is a few different things. One is that we have to get busy and do a classification and compensation study so we know what is the median wage for that particular job. What can I sell my time for anywhere doing this same job in our surrounding area? How do because we have to answer the questions for ourselves as an organization. How do we retain and how do we recruit employees? The recruitment issue is a very difficult issue, considering that, from Reading offers $100,000 for a lateral officer to sign on to be a police officer there. Chico offers $10,000. Paradise offers $40,000. You can go to Oakland and it pays $120,000. I mean, which is 3 hours away, working 3 days a week. It's not an unreasonable commute if that's what you chose to do and you wanted to work in the Bay Area. There's jobs everywhere. Right now, people are not flocking to law enforcement to get into this profession. It's becoming more and more difficult and more challenging each day, especially with the requirements that are placed upon us by the Police Officer Standards and Training Commission that has changed that bar for backgrounds and recruitment. So it's becoming more and more difficult. So what we've suggested to do, after meeting with all of the department heads and discussing this issue, because this is an issue that is occurring not only within the police department, but within all of the departments in the city. They're seeing people looking at different avenues and different employment. Right now we have a change in our society where people are re-examining how they seek employment, what they do for employment. Traditionally people you go to school, you get out of school, you get a job, you work that job for 30 years, 35 years, and then you retire and you go do something different. Well, people are looking at the world differently and re-examining that. I really believe everybody that wants a job has a job. I mean, yet we still see our community, and not just our community, but everywhere, has tons of work help wanted signs. I mean, so people are just re-examining how they're experiencing life and how they're fulfilling their needs financially and monetarily. So we have to adapt to that. Otherwise, we're not going to be successful. So our world has to change. So after meeting with our other department heads and discussing this, we came up with a little bit of a different approach to this, because I'd like to just remind everybody this is transitory. This is a one-time deal that we are offering. This is an agreement that would go from, if this council approved it, from the moment that we negotiate it successfully through a meet and confer process until June 30 of next year. If a new agreement wasn't reached by June 30 of next year, then everything would go back to what it currently is today. So what we're suggesting is that we implement a citywide 3% salary increase. That will go on to your salary schedule for everyone. Everyone would receive 3%. We would go beyond that, and right now the city currently has a 2-tier salary schedule. Employees that were hired, I believe it was after 2017, I believe, were put onto a second tier. What the second tier is it's the same salary schedule, but as merit increases came, the merit increases were broken in half, so they were receiving 2.5% increases every year as opposed to a 5% increase every year. So what the suggestion would be is to temporarily suspend that second tier, move all second tier employees to first tier. So an example would be is if you're a step C employee on the second tier, you would go to step C on the first tier. That would effectively result in a raise for that employee, which would take them further up and close that disparity between what that job pays elsewhere and what we're currently paying for it. The next step that we would like to implement is specifically for our municipal law enforcement officers is to immediately move all of them to the $23 and I believe it's $23.30 per hour step G of the salary schedule. That's the highest step that's available for them, and that's the best that we can do for them. That will become effective immediately should the council choose to do this. The last portion of this that we would like to do is also look at a one-time cash payment of $6,000 to each employee. I know we've had some discussion about that, about potentially breaking that up either in half or in quarters. That would be, whatever the direction is from the council on that, we would certainly implement that. The purpose of the $6,000 is to cover that disparity in wage that currently exists between other agencies and ours. This is a one-time expenditure for the year that we're just trying to cover this next year while we complete our classification and compensation study and a negotiation with our labor unions so that we can come back to the council with a long-term solution to this. We need to take some sort of action now in order to ensure that we have some ability to retain some of our employees. So with that, I believe I've touched on all the points. I'm willing to answer any questions that any of the council may have.
Do you have any questions from the public on this item?
I submitted a blue card.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one public speaker, Linda Draper.
Nice to see all of you here, and I hope you guys are all having a good summer. I'm really concerned about this raise of 3%, and I'm also concerned about this $6,000 one-time thing. The city seems to be acting like it's some kind of corporation that can throw out $6,000, to keep people there, or use it as a signing bonus or whatever. And I don't think it's fair to compare what the city of Oroville is spending and paying employees with Butte County. Their budget is much more massive than ours, and so is Chico's. In my way of thinking, if there are groups that are underpaid, like the MLEs, Public Works, I can see it for those people, and I'm all for workers getting what they deserve. I'm a strong union person and was a union member when I was working. But this seems to me to be really outrageous, and I don't consider this fiscal responsibility at all. And if I were on the council, I would be voting no on this because it is not fiscally responsible. It just is not. And the $6,000, how many businesses in this town do you think are giving employees $6,000 to keep them, equitable with everybody else? And then we look at agenda item 21 and oh my God, we're finding out how poor the people in Oroville are. Duh, we know that. It's a poor city, but our city council is not acting like they're representing poor people. You act like this is a filthy rich area, and money is no object. And the other concern I have is people at the top of the salary schedule here, and maybe people in the public are not aware of this. A lot of people at the top make $175,000. And so 3% for folks like that is going to be another $5,250 annually. And then they get a $6,000 bonus, and they're already getting paid almost $200,000 a year. And I just have a real problem with giving out more money to people that are already, I think they're being well paid already. My other concern is, I looked on the net the other day for a video of a meeting. There have been no videos of city council meetings since February 1st.
We're on item number 12.
I know, but this is a concern. So
You're going to have to
there's
bring
no
that up for
transparency.
non-agenda items, ma'am.
Anyway, it's just a sad thing that there's no transparency. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that is the only speaker on this item.
Are there any questions from the dais? Councilmember Hatley?
Yes, thank you. When we look at this, and there are some questions that I have on this. Number one, if we have employees chasing the dollar, they'll always chase the dollar. We can't compete. If we give them a 3% and the $6,000, they're still going to be making less than if they wanted to go across the river, if they could get hired over there, or to Paradise or to Chico. Just because they have openings doesn't necessarily mean they can automatically just get a job there. There's a whole process that they're going to have to get through. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying that it wouldn't be something that they could do, just say, well, I'm leaving and go. This all equates out to $871,329. Almost $1 million to do this. And that's just, in this day and age, I honestly believe, and, you know, I know there's some people that believe it with me, but I honestly believe that we're real close to running towards a recession again. And when that happens, we're going to be in deep trouble if we just keep spending money left and right. The other thing that I have on this is that we do have to look at what the people in this community live by, and it did come out in item 21 for the housing, and it showed what the people who are living at or below the poverty level in Oroville. And for a family, it's like 17.2%, and for individuals, it's 25.5%. Now, that's higher than the state or the county average. So we are lower income than even the state or the county average. And in some tracts, because they did the census by tracts, some areas are 30% below the poverty. So, and you're right, it costs more money to live now. I get that, but unless you're able to match what everybody else is paying, those people are still going to leave. If that's their mindset, that they're going to chase the dollar, that's exactly what they're going to do. And I understand that there's a whole different mindset now as far as the younger people, as it was stated, not caring about retirement and that. The thing is, we're kind of mandated to offer those things and to supply or to provide the retirement, the PERS retirement. Sure, you might go to work somewhere else in private industry, but you're not going to get the retirement. You're not going to get a lot of the perks that you get working for a government entity. I feel for the folks, and I say, yes, there's some people that we need to bring up a little higher, but just across the board blanket, I have a problem with that. And the $6,000 $1,000, it doesn't matter whether you divvy it out in portions or one lump sum or however you're going to do it. If the people have the mindset to leave, they're going to leave because we're not matching, whether we give that to them or not, what, if they can get a job at Butte County or whatever. Now, I know Butte County just did a big thing and gave their employees a lot of money, 19% raise, I think. Well, they're going to have to pay for that somewhere. There is no free money. If people tell you they're free money, there's two things you better do. Run as fast as you can and try to get them some mental help, because there is no free money. None. So what I'm saying is that we need to look at this, but this is not the way to go. I don't think we're going to save anything here. Again, you cannot spend your way to prosperity. It cannot be done. And so if the council moves forward on this, I just hope for the best, but I know in my heart that this is the wrong thing to do right now. It's just not going to work for us. Thank you.
Councilmember Riggs?
Thank you. I said this during the last time I spoke, and I'll say it again, that people are our most valuable assets. I agree that looking at the item number 21 regarding the housing element update and addressing poverty, I think that it's important to know that we also can't address the concerns of poverty within our community if we're not able to attract and retain qualified candidates and a comprehensive city staff. We can't do that without Amy and her team. We can't do that without Dawn and her team, and without all of the teams here. I'll be here all night if I call out each one of you, but really we can't address those issues long-term without the valuable individuals that serve on a daily basis in our community. And so for me, I support this. I know that I would agree that this is not a perfect solution. I'm encouraged, and I think that it's important and valuable to note that this isn't a long-term solution. This is an immediate solution with intentions for a long-term solution to be addressed with a comprehensive compensation study leading into the next fiscal year. So although 3% across the board and $6,000 all around isn't very thought out as far as who really needs the most comprehensive increase in their salary, that is coming, and I believe that having that as we're moving in the right direction is really valuable. I also think that it reflects well on our city staff that instead of looking at 19%, as it's been stated from Butte County, that we're doing something a bit more conservative at 3%, and then one-time monies as well. So I am encouraged that yes, you're right, money is not free, but we are taking a more conservative, fiscally conservative approach, which I'm encouraged by. I would say, though, that I would like the $6,000 extrapolated out over 7 months, maybe in like 3 installments, in order to not give all of the carrot all at once, but chop it up a little bit so that we can really use this as a retention tool. Also, it'll help employees know that another good thing is coming. I'm encouraged by that. And then reminding that the compensation study is occurring in the future. One thing I would like for you to address that is mentioned in the staff report but can easily be missed is the budgeting and how this is already pre-thought out. We're not just spending this money without thought, that it can be accommodated.
Excuse me, part of this was, a thought was given to as we fashioned our budget this year to include a 3% cost of living adjustment in there in case it came to the point where we had to do something like that. This issue arose a lot more rapid than what was expected, so that 3% is included in the budget that you've already adopted.
Can you speak to the raise as well? Sorry, not the raise, the one-time fee as well?
The one-time monies are going to come from your local fiscal recovery funds that were there. That was the $4.9 million that was sent to the city during the time of COVID, during the pandemic, to offset and mitigate the impacts of what that was. Since then, since we received I believe it was, I'm not going to say it's a small amount, but compared to what was sent to other cities, it was a relatively small amount. We fell within a certain group of cities that enabled us to free that money up and use that for whatever purposes that the city deemed was the most appropriate for those dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. I just want to correct something that was stated by one of the public speakers. It was insinuated that this is also going to employees who are making, who are not in the second tier, but who are making, as was stated, 170, 150-ish. That does not include them, correct?
No, sir, it does include everyone in the city, all employees, unless you change that. I mean, this is your opportunity to craft this in the way that you feel is best.
What I read here was second tier.
No, this is for, everybody in the second tier will be moving to the first tier. I mean, so what, on the fiscal impact, when it says second tier suspension and 3% COLA, that's two things combined. That's moving employees from the second tier to the first tier, and that's also the 3% cost of living adjustment. For some employees, not everyone, and I'll just use myself as an example. I'm a 20-plus year employee. I am not a second-tier employee. I was first tier, and not because I'm better. I've just been here longer.
There was also a misstatement there. The employees in this city do not make $170,000. That statement was made by the speaker.
Right. So
I don't know if Bill's the highest paid. He does not make $170,000.
I am the highest paid city employee, and I do not make $175,000. There was a time when I was given that salary, and then due to issues within the city and asking employees to stay back from or hold off on the raises that the contracts had guaranteed them, I also put 3% of my wages on the line several years ago, which takes me down below $170,000, and I just never have came back to you and asked for that back.
Well, I also want to state as well that, being around a lot of different people in the city and friends, I have friends who've been janitors here locally in Oroville making close to $20 an hour. So, our MLEs are I think very vital to our community, but paying them a starting wage of 17, and then if they're here for quite a while, then potentially they could get up to $23 an hour at the top tier, to me just needs to be rectified, so.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah. As I said back there, transitory, that's what we were told, right? That so much of what's happening now is a result of decisions made on the federal level. And so we are experiencing, of course, significant inflation. Just the struggle with hiring is not just a Oroville problem, not just a California problem, it's a nationwide problem. So, we're not unique by any stretch and challenged with this. And I'm kind of conflicted, because I harken back to a different era, a different culture and mindset. I had at one point 3 jobs. So did my dad. He had 2. It's just what you did. You bucked up, and you worked a little harder. You moonlit, right? Man, oh man, don't ask anybody to do that today. Yeah. So just, I can fault that. I can poke fun at that, but that's just a reality. And maybe I need to learn something, right, from the younger generation. We can all learn things from each other. And so I'm kind of conflicted with that. But we're, as a city, we do have to consider the fact that the county happens to be, last time I checked, into city limits, which is kind of an irony to the issue of poverty level, because if you check, the highest employer in the city is the county. And all those jobs do pay really, really well. They're probably the best paid folks, other than the hospital. Oh, by the way, that's the second largest employer in the city. And I'm kind of going someplace with this. A lot of them don't live here. In fact, a big chunk of them don't live here, which skews the look of Oroville. People that work, or I should say work here, a lot of them do very, very well. The problem we have is housing, in large part. We don't have that mid-level and upper-end housing. And so they don't live here. So when we get into this whole conversation about housing and what that looks like, we have to understand some of that's a little skewed when we think about who works here, who spends a large part of their time here. I mean, you think about you as an individual, a lot of your time is spent at work, working for your employer, making a buck for your household. So just conceptually, I think it's important for us to have, the 30,000-foot view when we're dealing with all of this stuff. And then, just again, I might just become part of the frustration of the problem when I think about throwing money at a problem, because as our mayor has eloquently talked about, shoveling, just money into the furnace as it burns up, and that's kind of what we've done on that federal level, and so here we are with this inflation issue, employees needing a buck. So the $6,000, which comes out of the COVID money, which is kind of ironic, it's one-time monies, and that's in part what's pumped up this whole inflation issue, which is now we're just a smaller government kind of doing what the folks in the upper echelon that kind of created this have done. I acknowledge it's a frustration. It makes you like kind of a little bit, I don't know, I get almost angry thinking about that. But that doesn't fix the problem, which is we have employees leaving, we have all these issues at hand, and we're being compared. And so I'm kind of conflicted. I am concerned about, and you'd mentioned this is already the 3% into the budget. So when we move the second tier and make them first tier, that's actually going to be more than a 3%. Whatever that number comes out to be. So did we, so in that budget, did we calculate and kind of like projecting out a couple of years what that impacts will be? And can we, assuming everything stays as it is with income levels that were copacetic, we're going to be able to shoulder all of these bumps?
No, because this is not a multi-year deal. This is until June 30. I mean, we have to renegotiate something between now and then, and we really don't know at this time honestly what to negotiate, because we don't have that classification and compensation study where we can get what that median wage is for each one of those jobs. Now, I understand the median wage in the community and what people make and things like that, but that's like saying I live in a community that, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way or anything else, but I live in a community of fast food workers and I'm a doctor, so I should make what fast food workers make. I mean, each job is unique into itself and what it pays. I mean, so we have to address what that is if we're going to attract a qualified professional employee to that job.
Yeah, I agree with that in principle. I think the challenge is typically, though, it is somewhat reflective of the median income in an area to a point, but because we're so close to large metropolitan areas or much larger cities, or we're the county seat, and so then that kind of, it blurs it a little bit. I mean, if we were out in the middle of, I don't know, North Dakota, and there was no other cities around, it'd probably be a little more representative. I mean, but that's just typically how we,
Absolutely,
look at things.
that absolutely affects your cost of living and what your wages are. I mean, that's you're correct on that, Councilman Smith.
Yeah. So, but I'm not opposed to. It just kind of it's kind of here we are, and all of a sudden it feels like an emergency. The alarms are going off, and we're having a 3-alarm fire here, and just digesting all of this. And is there a way to maybe gas pedal on maybe some of the lower paid, like the MLEs, to bring them to the 23? Again, I'm throwing that out, and I'll let the rest of the council weigh in on this.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you. About 30 years ago, the city made a commitment to bring in jobs by way of commercial development, and that was a huge mistake. The activity should have been to bring in the homes and the housing, because where people live is where they spend their money. And that was a mistake the city made. So consequently, we have a shortage on housing that is, monumental. We have the real estate, we have the utilities, the water, and the capacity for more housing. A short example is many of the medical staff at the hospital have to be transported from Roseville every day by buses because they don't have housing here for their market rate homes that we should have. So there's a classic example of the problem, because what you should be paying for on your home is 30% of your income. The reality here in Oroville is they're paying 60% of their income for housing alone, which doesn't leave you much less for the simple family life of supporting the kids and the family and the issues that, soccer and baseball and all the different things that kids have after school activities, which is leading toward the quality of life. So the city made a mistake, and we'll own up to that. Today, I see this, the 3% salary increase, that's a commitment we make. When we make a commitment to increase salary, we rarely bring it back. So that's a solid commitment. Bringing up the two up to the other tier, I see the need there because they're down at minimum wage today. We have to adjust some of these because they're below minimum wage. So, you know, our salary schedule has not kept up with what's been going on in the market in our particular area. So that clearly is necessary steps to be taken. The $6,000 offset, I really have to say I initially was shocked by that number. But then I listened to others around me and I listened to that dollar amount. And I worry that if we just handed it out tomorrow, how many would stay here tomorrow? So if we do go down that path, Councilman Riggs mentioned the idea of having some kind of a step bonus where that dollar amount would be spread out over 3 or 4 months, because then there would be a carrot on the string to stay, or a dangling carrot to stay. I think if we have to use that amount, I'm still a little shocked by that number. I'm worried, but I also know that a fixed amount will buy us time until we get to negotiations. So I would rather be going into negotiations with that being spent than to be behind the curve. I also would like to add the idea of flex scheduling for staff, and I know it's hard to do, but some positions, if the crews could come together and do a 4-day work week, 4 10s, and that saves them a transportation day. Or if there's online ability with the technology we have for a particular position to handle their workload by that, and that means they could work from home. I have no problem with that too. It should be in there, but it also needs to be on a case-by-case basis, because we can't do a general, everybody gets to do that. That just doesn't work. The city is a necessary human needs organization. If we had everybody walk into the front door of City Hall and all you had was a computer screen, that's not going to work today. It just isn't going to work. It's going to be rather comical. I see that right now at the labs that we go and have our blood tests done. You walk in there and that's all you have is a computer screen, and you've got to sign up yourself. And I see the people struggling with that. So our society's not ready for that kind of activity. The flex schedule, and I don't know how it's going to work. It almost has to work. Every department has. You can't do flex scheduling with police officers. That doesn't work. Obviously. So there's some positions that might be useful and might be helpful. The other thing that I think is we need to separate from this is the police department issue needs to be dealt with on a different basis. That's a very particular problem, and I don't really want to roll it into this. Other than we have to look at that as something else, because I'm hearing tremendous hiring bonuses and issues that we have not received a police application for a long time. It's a difficult issue to deal with, and I think that needs to be separately dealt with on that particular basis. It can be part of this, obviously, for citywide, but I hate to say I will go along with that dollar amount, but I would only go along if it was spaced out over a 4-step period or a 4-step process where they would realize it's a carrot on the string, and it means that the employer of the city is serious. We value you. We want to keep you here. I realize transportation costs alone, I'm paying that myself for my other member of my family, and it's $200 a week in gas that we never spent that before. Just that's what you have to spend, and it's borderline ridiculous, but that's where we're at today. So I'm more inclined to go along with those along that type of line. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, just real quick, while we're clarifying statements that were not accurate, the city on the website, our agendas, and are all online. In fact, I frequently go there myself to pull my packet for this meeting. It's all here. It was stated they hadn't been posted since February or something like that. And I just wanted the public to know that, no, the city's up till today is right there online. You can get it.
Thank you. We're on item number 12. That's what I said to her, too, so I got to stick with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Goodson.
So I've listened a great deal. This did come upon us rather abruptly. So I don't like those fast and furious, and we have to come to a decision right now. So we've had a conversation prior to coming in to this particular setting. There's been a lot of if, ands, buts, uncertainties, pros, cons. It goes without saying that the entry-level positions, yes, of course, they must need to be addressed. They need to go into a higher pay scale range. Now, the 6,000, that's where I have some pushback. I saw that Councilman Thompson may have been, I can't put words in his mouth, was under the impression that it was not going for all employees. And that was a concern of mine as well. And yes, it is. And it's going for employees that are making 75, 84, 100,000, 140, et cetera, et cetera. So I really can't wrap my head around the feasibility of that. But, often when we hear from city staff, it's half full, it's half empty. It just depends upon how the staff report reads. And I am in agreement with Councilman Pittman in regards to a hybrid system, something where the employees are able to mitigate the cost of transportation. I know that we're all aware the gas is going down. I personally have the flexibility in my work to go to Chico every day or stay home and work twice as hard every day, because you do work more when you're at home. So there's that would be my challenge right there, the 6,000 across the employees scale.
Okay, I've heard everyone speak on this, and I think what we're doing, some of us are doing, is comparing our own career decisions with those of others, and the situation that we're in now. Some of us are past our majority of our careers. I know I am, and when I started out, it was a lot less. Councilman Pittman was a fireman. He made $752 a month. So we can't compare to that. That's I made a penny a piece cleaning brick. So we just can't do that. What we've got to do is we've got to look at the market and what is going on with the people. We did not create this environment, but we are certainly subject to it. Thank God we are in a position to make adjustments rather than sitting here on the verge of bankruptcy wondering what we're going to do and wringing our hands. Now, I know I'm probably going to hear something about Measure U. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't care how fast you shovel cash into a furnace. You will not put out the fire if you don't have proper management. And this is a good team. This team has brought this city to success in the last few years, and things are moving forward in a positive manner. We're happy about that. We're not in the situation we were monetarily before. And I'll tell you, Measure U was a gift. But I'll tell you what, the management of those in charge is also very important. That plays a huge contributing factor. These are experts. They've come to us with this situation. I've witnessed it myself. I've seen it. I agree with at least some of what every council member has said, because we had conversation in the back. Councilman Hatley, I agree. We'll never get it back. You're right. They won't go backwards. So we just need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to move forward in a positive manner. When I came here for the reckoning, to set things right in my own mind. And these employees that move this city along every day are the engine inside of this wheel. And why is it that when someone's from somewhere else, we value them more and we're willing to pay them more? Why don't we value our own citizens, our own employees, and pay them more and raise this poverty-stricken level up by taking care of our own people? I'm not going to sit here on this dais and count money in the bank when I got people trying to feed children, pay for a tank of gas, pay a PG&E bill. My bills are high too. I pay $6.50 for that gallon of milk as well, $6.50 for that gallon of gas or diesel. So I know how hard it can be on people just starting out. So as far as this, Mr. Legrone and staff, I really appreciate everything that you put into it. I personally think that it makes sense. I think that all of you have done an exemplary job in what you do, and I'm here to set policy and make decisions. I'm not here to lord over people what they make for a living. I'm here to follow the market and take care of the people that are taking care of us. So I'm looking for a motion on Resolution 9072.
So moved.
I'll second. Do we need to add in the discussion
So
about
The
the delay, the sections, or do you have what you need for that?
Yes, ma'am. I just would like some clarity on that because Councilman Pittman offered a 4-step payment and you offered a 3-step payment. I would suggest that we do a quarterly one, September, December, March, and do it over those 3 timeframes, $2,000 each.
As long as one of them hits in December, because that will be the
One will hit in December.
But if you
most
do
vulnerable
4, that's
month.
not $2,000 each.
No, I would do 3. I would do September, December, and then March.
Motion ratified that's great.
Yes.
Second as well?
Yes.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 nos.
Thank you, Council.
Moving on to item number 13, annual assessments for the city's Consolidated Landscape and Lighting Maintenance Assessment District, zones 1 through 6, 8 through 10, 12 through 15, and 18.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The next 4 items on your agenda are for our annual assessments. The
Dawn?
first 2,
I was going to say, before we begin, the council members need to know which ones they need to
that's what I'm getting into.
excuse themselves. Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
So the first 2 agenda items are for the Landscape Lighting and Maintenance Assessment District. And they're broken into 2 each because there are council members that live in close proximity of those 18 zones, which create a conflict of interest, causing recusal of their vote for certain districts. So for this first staff report for the Landscape Lighting Maintenance Assessment District, we will ask Councilmember Hatley to recuse himself as he lives in close proximity to zones 13, 4, 6, 18, and 12. And so this evening, we are voting on zones 2 through 6, 8 through 10, 12 through 15, and the newly added 18.
You said 2 through 6. I have 1 through 6.
The title is incorrect, but the resolution is correct. So I apologize for that typographical error. And so this is to consider initiating proceedings preliminarily approving the annual assessment for these zones.
Okay, do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any speakers on this item.
Do you have any questions from this dais? Having none, looking for a resolution to adopt number 9077.
So moved.
Second?
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Moving on to item number 14, annual assessments for the city's consolidated landscape and lighting maintenance assessment districts, zones 1, 7, 11, 16, and 17.
And for this staff report, we'll have Mayor Reynolds, council members Smith and Pittman recuse themselves, please.
Wow.
Revel in it.
Good luck, everybody. Are there any comments from the public on this motion, on this matter?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I do not have any speakers on this item.
Any comments from this dais? Looking for a motion. Oh, Briggs, go ahead.
How does it feel?
The power is overwhelming.
He's dumbfounded by the power.
The next 45 minutes telling you exactly how it feels.
Just wanted to buy you some time.
Blown away. Any comments from this dais? Looking for a motion.
And so move that we,
Second.
blah, blah, blah.
Motion carries with 4 yeses and 3 absent.
That I give the power back
Temporarily.
temporarily.
All right. So our next 2 staff reports are for the Consolidated Benefit Assessment Districts, and this is also broken into 2 staff reports, again, for close proximity. So this first staff report is for zones 1, 4, 5, and 9, and again, I will ask Councilmember Hatley to recuse himself.
Are there any comments from the public on item number 15?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Do we have any comments from this dais? Having none, looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9078.
So moved.
Second?
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Item number 16, do we have any, isn't Councilmember Hatley excluded on this one as well?
Not on 16.
Okay.
So-
I thought you said both of them.
For this next item, it will be zones 2, 3, and 6 through 8, and it will be council members Smith and Pittman recusing themselves.
Must be fun to figure all this out.
It would, Jackie and I spent a little bit of time because we've had council members shuffle a little bit.
Okay, do we have any comments from the public on item number 16?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Having none, do we have any comments from this dais? Having none, looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9079.
So move?
Second.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 absent.
Thank you again, council members. And this is the preliminarily approving this motion, and then we will bring it back for the final approval, public hearing, August 2nd.
Thank you. Item number 17, placement of solid waste liens on the 2022-23 property tax roll.
Good evening, Mayor Reynolds and council members. So tonight is the night for our tax roll, as you could see. This is another item for the tax roll. It is our obligation to put the recology sewer liens, our solid waste liens, on the tax roll. So this is a formality that we do every year. And because we need the resolution and the certified 218 in order to put it on the tax roll. So it's
Do we have any
that time of
questions
year.
from the public on this item?
Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Having none, do we have any questions or comments from the dais? I know what she's going to say. Looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9073.
So moved.
Second.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I knew what you were going to say.
I just want to add, I'm glad we went to APNs and not listing addresses on this. I think that was a good move. City
Yeah.
staff, thank you.
Item number 18, annual sanitary sewer service to be
Mr.
levied on the, oh, sorry.
The motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Item number 18, annual sanitary sewer service to be levied on the 2022-23 tax roll.
So this is another tax roll item that we need to get a resolution for in order to put it on the tax roll. I did note that the score side of our sewer fee went up $2 a month this year, with another scheduled increase next year of $4 a month.
Are there any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, there are no public speakers on this item.
Are there any questions from the dais? Having none, looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9074.
So moved.
No second?
Oh, sorry.
Carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Okay, with that, we will open the public hearing at 6:08 PM. Item number 19, consideration of a resolution electing to have the city of Oroville become subject to the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Procedures, and consideration of an ordinance amending Title II of the Oroville Municipal Code, amending Chapter 2.24, Bureau of Purchase, concerning the implementation of Uniform Construction Cost Accounting Act procedures.
Mr. Mayor, we respectfully request to continue that to the following meeting. The April.
Let me say all that.
What's that? Couldn't get a word in edgewise.
off.
Item number 19 will be continued. Moving on to item number 20, General Plan Amendment GPA 22-01 to change land use designation of 22 downtown parcels in and around the former Ford dealership. Parcels fronting Lincoln, Stafford, Oak, and Broderick Streets to mixed use. And first reading of ordinance 1867 to rezone the parcels to downtown mixed use, APN numbers 012 through, can I do that, Scott?
You don't have to read those.
Okay, thank you. I can. As agendized. Wes?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, before you is a proposal to rezone 22 parcels across the street from here to MXD, Downtown Mixed Use. We have interest from local developers to redevelop the former Ford dealership and surrounding parcels to commercial uses. We have in fact approved a facade change across the street in one of the buildings, and the Ozone Entertainment business has started there as well. These lots are currently zoned PQ, public quasi-public, because during the last general plan deliberations in 2015, that area was set aside for a future plaza linking City Hall with Centennial Park and making a very nice public space. That vision is no longer active, so the city has now initiated this rezone to encourage more small commercial and perhaps even some multi-family housing. Local developer, the same developer, Mr. Mendez, is in the process of acquiring 21 of these parcels. He owns most of the rest already, and will in future bring in the appropriate applications for whatever uses he wants to populate these parcels with. 1221, 1235 Lincoln is the site of the Christian Faith Center. The building itself will be rezoned. It's also included here. The parking lot in front of it will not be. That will remain PQ. We note that the city owns 2 of these sloped parcels on the levee. One is 2,600 square feet, and one is 3,400 square feet. So 2 very small parcels, not together. So the council may hear more about these in the near future as development proceeds. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, there is one speaker on this item, John Mitchell.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. So I am Pastor John Mitchell of Christian Faith Center across the street, 1235 Lincoln Street. And it's just the first that I'm hearing of this. And so I guess I have a lot of questions, just what impact and effect that may have on us. I mean, surface level, I see it may just improve resale value if we decide to relocate later down the line. But just curious why maybe someone hasn't had a conversation with us regarding this.
Wes can answer that for you.
The Planning Commission added this parcel during its deliberations, and with the understanding that this parcel was once a restaurant and could indeed again be a commercial establishment. So it does give the church and the church owners the option of more potential uses for that building than they have now.
But no effect to current use.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that's the only speaker on this item.
Do we have any questions from the dais?
I do.
Councilmember Smith?
I'm sorry. Yeah, so why did we not include the church parking lot? I mean, could that impact a sell, and if they did decide to sell and relocate, would that have any negative impact potentially? Or should that be something they're concerned about?
The parking lot could in fact be included to be rezoned as downtown mixed use. Most parking lots in the area are zoned PQ, public, quasi-public, and typically are available for public parking.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, you still had some time. I don't want to set a precedence, but
I would just like to say for the record that we would be okay with that, including the parking lot in that zoning.
yeah, and that's not as agendized, though. Would we be?
This is a first reading. Yeah, you actually would be able to, if you wanted to, you could amend the draft ordinance to include that parcel. And then on the second reading, it would need to be published as part of the second reading, but you could add it.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the dais on this? Looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9075, including the parking lot at Lincoln and Montgomery.
So moved.
Northeast.
Second.
corner.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Okay, moving on to item number 21, housing element update, 2022 through 2030.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we are aware that this is the last agenda item in a long day, so we want to be considerate of the council's time. We have about 20 minutes of presentation prepared to present the high points of this very complicated, very lengthy document, but we can shorten it to only the most critical if that's the council's wish. We trust that you have read the document and accompanying materials, so we will keep it short and concentrate on any questions you may have. So the pleasure of the council is to proceed with the 20-minute full presentation. No?
I'm fine with the 20 minutes. Oh, wow.
We'll be revisiting this, correct? This.
If you approve the proposed, the staff report as proposed tonight, this would move on to Housing and Community Development for their review and certification. If you'd like to see it again, that's completely your option.
I'm fine with the highlight reel, as long as that's a consensus.
Yeah. We do appreciate the tremendous amount of staff time and effort and, you know, the detail that you put into this report. I can honestly say that everyone on this dais has read it.
All right, I'll give the highlights, and then we'll see if you want to have our consultant from Housing Tools come up and give a little bit of an overview. There is a PowerPoint presentation accompanying that. Before you is a 289-page document. That is a required element of the Oroville General Plan, required to be updated every 8 years. Every housing element in the state of California is now being updated. It's all in cycles. Briefly, why a housing element? For every jurisdiction, the housing element is required to analyze the economic circumstances and housing needs of that jurisdiction's population, appropriately plan for adequate housing in all economic sectors, enact policies that encourage private sector investment in housing, since the private sector is what creates almost all housing, and then create programs to support housing development and housing maintenance and upkeep. So I'd have 2 quick points to make here. First, the Planning Commission and staff would like to note that we believe this document has identified appropriate vacant and properly zoned sites to meet the needs of future growth in Oroville, and the numbers and the quotas were given to us by Housing and Community Development and by BCAG. This particular element includes a lot of new data, which is a new requirement of HCD. And that data, we believe, will be quite useful. It's quite detailed as we move forward with our new housing. Lots and lots of demographic information. As we move forward with our revitalization efforts, especially in Southside, with our housing assistance programs, and with our future grant applications. This will be a wealth of information we can use to support grant applications as well. Second, a couple of the proposed programs in Chapter 3 will eventually require us to tweak our zoning codes to be consistent with state law and with HCD's requirements. Among those, and primarily, we'll be updating our ordinance for accessory dwelling units, making sure our codes relating to transitional and supportive housing meet state law. As you recall, Council discussed this in February, but we will have to revisit this topic with perhaps some zoning recommendations in the future. Also, re-strengthening our technical assistance programs and our programs for homebuyer and housing rehab assistance. If you have any questions there, Amy Bergstrand, our housing manager, is here to answer any questions. And then using grant funds to support housing rehab and blight elimination, especially in Southside, and hopefully expanding some of our programs to be available to renter units instead of just owner-occupied units. As we tackle these items, we will bring these changes to Council for approval. The element itself has a number of required sections, which, if you desire housing tools, James Coles and Serena Rye will make a short presentation. They also have a highlight version ready if it's the council's pleasure.
Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
I've got one other thing to say.
Yes, sir.
We did get one comment letter from the Butte Environmental Council, and they'll likely testify this evening. So.
Okay. Councilmember Goodson?
Yes, could you elaborate on the accessory dwelling unit and what that looks like? What type of accommodation would that look like, and specifically in South Oroville? Because of the size of many of those lots.
Yes, we have a second dwelling ordinance already on the books, which authorizes what is commonly called ADUs. In any single-family lot, you can add a new structure anywhere from 500 to 1,200 square feet detached, or 450 square feet inside an existing dwelling. It's a separate living unit, and it's allowed by right. It's just an administrative permit here. That matches state law probably about 3 or 4 years ago. Since then, many laws have passed which liberalize this and encourage the development of accessory dwelling units, all part of the trend towards concentrating housing development in communities. And so by state law, you cannot require an additional parking spot, and then there's a number of other requirements. You can't charge new impact fees for that new structure and some other things like that. Our codes are not updated to some of those newer requirements, and we'll have to do that. And so we'll be bringing that to you.
Thank you for clarity.
Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, in the discussion of transitional housing code amendments, how does that correspond to the potential of, like the project we've been hoping over with Esperanza at the rescue mission, and that the potential of pallet-type structures and whatnot? Does this address any of that issue?
That is it's not a transitional or a supportive housing. It's not a sober living environment.
Okay.
It's a different category, but
Okay.
we'll also be looking at that to make sure that our codes are updated to allow that project.
Predicting if the grant funding comes through for projects like that, I don't want to have to rewrite a whole nother ordinance just because we got the grant. So, it'd be nice to have something available.
Yes, it's not likely to be major changes. It's likely to be tweaking our allowable use tables and a few other things like that.
The other thing I'd like to ask about was the potential of having safe parking areas for folks that are in that category. Would that have to be addressed in this element at all? And I'm thinking they would have a safe parking of a recreational vehicle or travel trailer or something like that.
That could be addressed with a couple of ways, I think, just off the top of my head.
Sure.
One being in project design, but the other in allowing the temporary parking of RVs and such.
Okay.
We do have a temporary use permit,
Okay.
which would authorize that.
That would, for that. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. I just want to touch on that base of this topic. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do have 2 public speakers. Our first one is Addison Winslow.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I'm here representing Butte Environmental Council. We're an organization that's countywide with the mission to protect the land, air, and water of Butte County. If you haven't heard of it, it might be because Butte Environmental Council's activities have typically been based in Chico. And a big disclaimer, I know a lot more about Chico than I do about Oroville. But I did have the privilege to come here, and I got a little downtown revitalization tour from my friend Mike Trollinger and Brian Wong, this downtown entrepreneur extraordinaire. And seen a whole lot. I have friends here, and I know some of the neighborhoods, and I know that there are some really nice neighborhoods. They, interestingly, don't get the same kind of respect that some of these neighborhoods do in Chico. Now, Chico and Oroville have a lot. There's roughly things are the same, but sort of to different degrees. So in Chico, homeownership opportunities are really just not there for ordinary people. Like under 400,000, it's like good luck. Under 300,000, forget it. There are few exceptions there, and typically you're finding like a house with a cracked foundation. It's going to require $100,000 or so in repairs, and so people. You need to assume that liability in order to enter into to that ownership. And Oroville has a lot of those opportunities around. But Oroville does something similar to Chico, where you take the nicest neighborhoods by some qualities. You have the gridded streets, so they're more walkable. You have street trees. You have proximity to downtown or to other commercial services, and they zone them low density. This is something that's happened across the country. We try to encase these areas like in amber, so they will never change again, and we try to focus our development in other areas that we think might be more deserving of it. And Oroville does that, I think, better than Chico does. Oroville has many more opportunities for that. The mixed-use corridor zoning gives all these opportunities for high-density housing. The thing is Oroville doesn't have as much interest as Chico from large-scale developers who have specialized equipment and have access to construction loans from banks. What Oroville does have is a lot of working-class people that would be capable of improving a house themselves. But the zoning that we have in these neighborhoods, like this downtown neighborhood like South Oroville, does not allow normal Orovillians to make a feasible business plan to be restoring these houses. Because if you can split it into multiple units, there's the economies of scale. This is what state law recognizes. This is why low-income housing in this document is higher density zoning. Because you can split it up, you can share it with other people. You also have the shared utilities. So having covered parking requirements, for example, it pulls back on that feasibility. You need to build a garage now, that could be an ADU, or you need to put a car here, and that could be where your garden would go. And it really is, it's stomping out these opportunities where that can happen, and that's something within the power of the city to change. You can target particular areas. I know they're looking at particular parcels in South Oroville. That's exactly the sort of thing that I think you should be including in this housing element to show HCD that Oroville is committed to meeting those housing needs. But it's not just about low-income housing. Single-family houses are not affordable to
Time.
the vast majority.
Can I ask you something? You said that some of the contributing factors for higher-end neighborhoods are gridded streets and sidewalks?
I said street trees, but sidewalks also, I would include that, you know. Yeah.
All right.
Walkability, and it's people not needing to rely on a car can actually save people a lot of money, but it also means the infrastructure is used more efficiently. You have that much street, and you have more houses sharing it, you know. Similar to a house sharing a foundation, multiple units sharing it, it's going to be cheaper for them. It's cheaper for the city to have fewer street lights, sidewalks, feet of pipe, and everything. So the more you can better utilize the existing areas that you have where you already pay for that infrastructure, the better it is for the city's coffers. And I think that's one side of the financial sustainability argument. There's also the environmental sustainability argument, the housing needs argument. But I think that's very important given Chico and Oroville cities are essentially insolvent. We don't have enough tax revenue coming in to cover our expenses. So we have to just shift things around. You know, when you were talking about it earlier with the staff bridge pay. And you give up that opportunity when you take these areas which would be attractive to investors, and the investors may be families here who would take a house. I have friends that did it on Montgomery Street. They take a house and you fix it up. Typically people get roommates because they can't afford it. But if you can split that into multiple units, you can make more efficient use of existing structures, you can bridge that gap and make that a business plan that normal people are able to carry out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is John Mitchell.
Hello again, City Council. I'm going to shift hats and not come to you as Pastor John of Christian Faith Center, but as John Mitchell. I'm the project coordinator for Tiny Pine Foundation. I wish that I could say I've had time to read through all 400 and some odd pages of this report, but I didn't. But I did find some areas in there that really did excite me a little bit, reading about how the city is looking forward to how they can make more accessible living space for people that is affordable and obtainable for them. So I'm really encouraged to be able to stand before you here tonight and just speak a little bit about that. There are housing solutions that are definitely needed within our communities, and there are some ordinances that are a little bit restrictive and cost prohibitive for many residents in our community to be able to really address the needs. Tiny homes have often been, associated with maybe homeless camps, but they actually serve a much broader demographic. Mainly, our focus has been building tiny homes for fire survivors, and as all of us here know, that's been a huge, huge impact to our community, and it's really, troubling to see what many of the residents are going to trying to rebuild their homes and what they once had. But there are many residents that are still living, on the sides of people's houses, in trailers, in backyards, in tents, in different areas that really aren't meant for habitation in many ways. And I think that we could really improve on what it is that we're able to offer people within our community as far as tiny houses go. Not just tiny houses on foundation, but even temporary, dwelling units in that sense of tiny homes on wheels that could even have a more temporary, allowance while they are maybe building a home or making some things happen in that area. But we're working with some of our partners who have been really instrumental in drafting some of the ordinances in different cities and counties throughout the state that have been adopted and passed that have made this really effective and feasible for cities and communities to be able to take action in this area. And so going forward, we would love to be a part of any conversations around this. And we do have a lot of partners that we can bring to the table as well that, as I said, have already gone, they've already invented the wheel in a sense. There's no sense in reinventing a lot of this. They do vary from city to city, county to county on what some of these communities are allowing, and I think that's what a lot of the laws in California now have allowed for communities to be able to adopt these ordinances to fit what works best in their communities, within their communities, to meet the needs in their communities. And so I said, I'm really excited to see this language in there that Oroville is looking at this, thinking about this, how we can not just ADUs, but like I said, tiny homes and maybe even some tiny homes on wheels to be able to get people, I want to say off the streets, because many of the people living in the tiny homes, that we're building, they're not homeless. They're seniors, they're disabled, they're vets, they're retired, they're elderly. So it's a much wider demographic than many think. So thank you so much for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, that is the last of the public speakers.
If there are no more comments from this dais, I'm looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9075.
So moved.
Didn't we have another presentation?
It sounds like the council has passed on that presentation. Is that correct?
I heard a motion for Councilmember Smith. I didn't hear a second.
I have a question before we vote.
Councilmember Pippin.
Thank you. There is a map that was put together in 2006 that showed all the available lots in the Oroville area. Was that included in this element? I looked for it, I couldn't find it. You may not know what I'm talking about.
The vacant land map?
Yes.
Yes, there is. I believe it is included in the housing element, and it was updated in 2021.
Okay,
so.
I just want to make sure that it's there because I've had many developers question and ask where that was, and I want to be able to say it was in this. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Riggs.
Thank you. Although I read the full document, and so if we could have that presentation published in the next agenda, so that could be pointed to for future conversations, I would appreciate that.
Will do.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point on the tiny homes. So do yourself a favor, go to YouTube, and it's across the socioeconomic spectrum of who's living in these tiny homes. It's really, really interesting. But it's a kind of a phenomenon. But YouTube, you can YouTube that tiny homes, and that's cool stuff.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
We will close the public hearing at 6:35 p.m. And we will move on to council announcements and reports. Anyone have any announcements or reports? We had 4th of July, we had all kinds of things. Councilmember Riggs.
Thanks. I'll just share that downtown Oroville is continuing on the Miners Alley revitalization project, and you should expect to see new pieces hung in the next 2 weeks. And then they'll also be having a celebration of that work being done in the coming months. So expect an announcement regarding that. And then also they continue to work with Explore Butte County for marketing materials, including a new video coming out, a modified video coming out shortly. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, just wanted to say thank you to the Rotary Club for a great relationship there and getting the fireworks done. Kind of crossing hats a little bit there, making that statement that way, but that was very good. I think the community really enjoyed it. It looked like it went really well. And then the fly-in and our little car show out there. And also, Feather River Parks District did a car show at Riverbend Park, which was just really, really amazing, well attended. And then on Sunday, I think they did a motorcycle show as well. So a lot happening, very busy schedule. It's just great to see people out and about and doing their thing.
Thank you. I just remembered, based on your comment there, I seen on social media where someone had said they were really upset with the city for not having the car show and things. You know, I would really encourage people to ask questions about who is in charge of what, because the city doesn't really have anything to do with that other than issuing the permits. It's the service clubs like Rotary for the fireworks, Exchange Club for the parade, and think the downtown events for Feather Fiesta Days. It's the service clubs that facilitate those events. So it's not the city. So I just want to be clear with that, because a lot of stuff gets dumped on. They say the city, and it starts to, you know, when you've been here for a little while, you start to think, hey, I thought that we were, you know, taking care of things, but there has been car shows, but the city's never ran the car shows. That was done by the Oro Dam Cruisers. So there was another group, a younger group, that was going to put that in motion, but it was like we got the word from last minute from the Oro Dam Cruisers, because most of them are in their 80s, and they had said, we're not going to be able to do it this year. And the new group tried as hard as they could. They just couldn't put it together in that amount of time. But I think that you'll be seeing those things come forward. So I just encourage people to ask questions. And it helps us grow, and it helps us move forward. If we're sitting there, you know, pointing fingers or wondering, then it's never going to get taken care of. Because if I wouldn't have seen those Facebook posts, then I wouldn't even be aware that people thought that the city ran the Feather Fiesta Days. So, future, Councilmember Pittman, did you wish to speak? You're in queue.
Well, if Goodson was there first, no, I'll go. I just want to add the fireworks did come off very well. The only sadness was the one service club there at the recreation district had the robbery, and that really devastated their group in terms of loss of that fireworks and the inventory that they lost. And then the second day, when the individuals actually destroyed the director's car because he parked it in front of the door, I was a little stymied by that. My Susan and I went down there to talk to them about it. Next thing I know, my pockets were emptied, and I had to buy the rest of what they had when they were closing the store. So I have a lot of fireworks, folks. It's just sad that I would hope that the public would see something, say something. If that robbery occurred twice in the same spot, all of us need to help. And if they see something happen like that, please report it so that can be caught and they captured, because they had a tremendous loss. And the sad thing is that all that money just goes for their kids to go to their different different meets and transportation, and those costs directly related to the club. So it was sad to see. But otherwise, fireworks went off really well. It was a donation by the members of the community to have them. So that's kind of unique in most cities that have fireworks. getting donations to have them is all about the 4th of July and the reason why we actually have rockets going back to the beginning of our country. So that was a good thing, and our Rotary Club is certainly happy to help, and we also appreciate the Chamber of Commerce and their help, and also this other agencies, the city, the public agencies that participated in managing the crowd, the Oroville Airport, the golf course, everybody. It's a big effort, so I think they all should take a pat on their back. It went off very well, and a very, very safe environment. So thank you to all.
Councilmember Goodson.
I don't have anything to report out, but I did have a question for Jackie. So I rarely go on the city website to look at the agenda, the minutes. And it's not the minutes, but I was just curious, videos. There aren't any videos of the city council since February 2nd of 2022. Is there a reason? And I think that's what.
So our videos are currently, the videos are accessible on our YouTube channel. Our
YouTube,
IT department,
okay.
since losing some of their staffing, has not been able to keep up on that.
Okay.
But because that part of it's handled by our IT department, and just they're working through it, but it is also on our YouTube channel, all of the videos.
So there's a way that we can get that information out to people that are.
The link is on our website for the
Okay.
YouTube channel.
Yeah, and for anybody who doesn't
Where
have
is
the
that?
link, if you go to youtube.com and in the search bar you type in City of Oroville, the very first thing that comes up is the city's YouTube channel. I think is what they call it. They call it all these technology companies want to come up with their own little slick name. I think YouTube calls it a channel. And if you just type in City of Oroville, first thing that comes up is the city's channel. And I just confirmed a moment ago, all those videos are there. SBF meeting, Planning Commission, Arts
Great.
Commission, they're all there. And I did send an email to the speaker to let her know how to find it along with a
thank you.
link.
All right, appreciate that. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
And there's also Oroville News Live.
Oh, well, yeah.
Councilmember Smith.
You stole my thunder. Or her thunder, as the case may be. But I would be remiss if I didn't thank the CAL FIRE for bringing out one of their tankers out there for the fly-in. The public was just really intrigued. It was really cool to see moms and dads and kids. And I think they had 4 staff out there answering all the questions. And I think there was just a good interaction between those that, risk their lives to keep us safe. And so I just want to say thank you, officially here to Chris Tens and the CAL FIRE, and for also all the work that went into making it happen. It was a little bit nip and tuck there. Weather had to cooperate and everything to burn that area off so we could have a fireworks show. So thank you very much.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn the meeting at 6:44. Until August 2nd, 2022 at 4 p.m.